Hey everyone, this is Stan, and this is just some more information on my ongoing battle of cancer, stage 4. So 3 years ago, I was given 5 years to live, um, and what they wanted to do is they wanted to, well, first of all, they did surgery, and then they wanted to have me on chemo for the rest of my life. I did one round of chemo, and then after a year, the cancer came back, and I stopped chemo, and I actually ended up having it radiated, the one nodule that had come back. But then I also started doing some natural things, and one of the things that I started doing was dandelion root extract, and I'm not going to get a lot into that here, but they are doing clinical trials on that. I have talked to the doctor who's doing the clinical trials, or I've emailed her. She emailed me back, said that they found that it's very effective with leukemia patients, certain kinds of leukemia patients. They found it to be very effective. That 3 cups of tea a day of that is sufficient for them, and that not to take more than that because it can be hard on the kidneys, but or hard on the liver is what she said, I believe. I haven't found that to be the problem. I actually have been on high doses of dandelion root extract. At first, it was very effective, and that was the main thing that I was taking. And it was very effective, and both my radiation oncologist and my medical oncologist said that the cancer growth that I have is very slow, and considering the fact that I haven't been on any chemo. So considering the fact that there hasn't been something that they've given me systemic that was killing it off, something was slowing it down. So here I am, 3 years in. I was on chemo for less than a year, and they would like me to go back on it again because I do have new growth, but I've been able to, I think, slow it down, and this is what I'm doing. So I just kind of want to document this. I'm not saying that this is what everybody should do. I'm not saying that this is perfect. I'm just saying that this is what I am doing and what I'm trying, and if it works, great. But colon cancer is super aggressive, and it keeps just coming back, and the only way medical doctors notified it is just keep giving you chemo, and then when that chemo wears off and cancer gets used to it, then they start a new chemo on you, and that's how they like to do it. However, and just so you understand, a while ago, I asked my doctor. I said, "Well, I know it's not going to be cancer that kills me. What's going to kill me?" And he said, "Well, it could be a number of things. It could be you could get pneumonia and die from pneumonia. You could have renal failure." And so I thought, well, afterwards, I was like, well, cancer, I guess, could spread to my kidneys, but it's in my lungs right now, so obviously that's why I would get pneumonia. I also have some in my throat. That's why I'm a little hoarse. And I have to cough every once in a while, so I'll pause the video while I cough. It's not that bad. I've had a little cough all my life from acid reflux and stuff like that. And usually I find that cancer settles into those weak spots. So because I've already had a problem with my throat in one of the lymph nodes there, I think it settled there because it found it was a weak area that it could settle. Um, and anyway, so I realized that what's really going to be causing my death would actually be um, killing my kidneys and hurting me so bad that my immune system couldn't fight off pneumonia. So with that in mind, I was thinking about that and thought, well, what's really going to be hurting my immune system so bad is actually the chemo. Chemo lowers your immune system terribly, and the thing that is hurting my kidneys so badly is the chemo as well. So um, I'm trying to avoid doing more chemo as much as possible. So I am trying all kinds of other stuff. I just had a CT scan today, and there was a tiny bit of growth, but not very much, and it was 2 months since my last scan. So I took that as a win because it was because one nodule grew slightly where the other ones were exactly the same, and so I take that as a win. Um, so I want to share what I am doing, and if this is helpful to somebody, then great. I'm not prescribing anything. I'm not telling you that this is what you should do. You should consult a physician before you do anything like this. I'm just telling you what I'm doing, and you can do your best with it. So, first of all, I was doing a tea. Every day I would get up and I would make I would basically drink 6 cups of tea a day. The tea was dandelion root, and then it had a tablespoon of dandelion root. So basically, I went to Amazon and I would get. Let me find a different tab here. I went to Amazon and I bought some large tea bags, and you can make this however you want. This is just how I do it. They're large tea bags like this, and I think this is probably one of the ones that I've ordered. And I would put in there a tablespoon of dandelion root, and I would take the dandelion root and I would buy that on Amazon as well. And the stuff that I would buy is the Frontier. I have tried this. It is a good tasting one, which makes me worry about it that it might be too good. Might be, it didn't seem right. Like this one was the one that I was taking at first when my doctors were surprised how good I was, or how little of growth my cancer had. So this is the one I was taking at first. So this is the one I'd probably recommend, the one from Frontier. So I have a cheap little coffee grinder. It's just a little handheld type coffee grinder, holds about a cup, and I would just take and grind maybe half a cup. I'd grind about half a cup of this at a time, and I would take and put it into like an old ice cream bucket, and then I would take 1 tablespoon out and put it into these bags. I also would take about almost 1 tablespoon hibiscus flower. So it's a red flower, has a really nice berry type flavor to it. Hibiscus is really good at fighting cancer as well, high in antioxidants. But one of the main reasons I wanted it in there because it tasted good, and also I'd taken hibiscus before to lower my blood pressure, and it really seemed to help. So I take hibiscus um, and then I take the dandelion root. And then the other thing I put in there is chaga mushroom. So chaga really has very little flavor. Um, and this is the one that I get. It's wild harvested. So this is the one that I get. And I take only about half a teaspoon to 3/4 of a teaspoon. Now, I want to warn you that after I took drank this tea 6 cups a day for about a month, my kidneys did start having trouble. They were down to about 54% effective, where normally they've been high 60s, mid 70s, right in there. And that was after chemo. So, but after I quit drinking the tea for a week and drank lots of water, it went back up to 60 something. So it rebounded really fast. So just be aware that that chaga is known for hurting your kidneys. So just be aware of that. So take it sparingly. If you want to go 1/4 of a teaspoon or not even use it at all, that's fine. But I feel that it's a good one. And let me show you one of the things I do, because I get recommendations all the time. People say, "Oh, you need to look into this. You need to look into that." So actually, I was at a health food store and a lady told me, "Oh, you should look into chaga mushroom." And so I was like, "Okay, I'll look into it." So I don't go and I don't just search the internet for chaga mushroom, because you're going to get everybody's rumors, and people spread rumors on the internet just as fast as they spread it anywhere else. And oftentimes they misquote stuff, they share things wrong, and so I like to go straight to the scientific source, and I go to a website called NIH, excuse me, NIH.gov. And so this is a government website. It's the National Institute of Health. If you go to research, hover over that, and then click on PubMed, you can then come up here and you can type in things like chaga and cancer. And it'll show you the research studies that have been done with chaga mushroom on cancer. So it looks like there are 27 studies that have been done. Now let's refine it a little bit more and see how many have been done on live animals. So we type in vivo for live animals. So there's two different types of, well, there's probably more different types of that than that, but there's in vitro, which they tested in a dish, and then there's in vivo, where they tested in an animal. In vitro, almost anything can kill cancer in a dish. I mean, you can put some bleach in there and it's going to kill it. The thing we want to make sure of is, first of all, does it hurt the other cells? Like if they put human cells in there, regular healthy cells in there, is it going to kill those? But also, what we really want to know is how it's going to work going into through a body. Is it going to be effective being taken into a body and used? And so that's why they usually test things on mice and rats and stuff like that. So you can see here there's 6 that have been that include the word vivo in them. You can click on these and you can read more about them. If they don't, usually they just have kind of the abstract or the conclusion right here. You can click over here and get the full article. They're very difficult to read, very difficult to understand because they are very scientific. You can go and open up Google and see what, have Google translate things for you. But even the graphs that they have are usually pretty difficult. So just want to warn you. but generally, from what I found, is chaga is actually pretty effective at killing cancer. So I've included that in my tea that I take. So the other thing that I take, and I've flashed over to the screen a few times, is the Mimi's Miracle Turmeric. So turmeric is really good for you as well. It has an active ingredient in it called curcumin. So curcuminoids are really good at fighting cancer. So we saw 20 something for chaga, and I think was what we found for chaga. And then with Vivo, we have 6 here. So let's type in curcumin and cancer, and let's even include the word Vivo in there. And there are 892 studies that have been done with those. So that tells you there's something to this, that curcumin is a hot item for killing cancer. Now the problem with turmeric is you have to actually eat a lot of it to get that curcumin out and have that curcumin absorbed into your body, because curcumin actually gets destroyed if you're just taking it by the pill, your curcumin is just getting destroyed in your stomach and it's not making it through. So what they found that they need to do is they have this curcumin that they call liposomal, and if you look at liposomal basically is that they've taken and they encapsulate the molecules of the curcumin in something, and it's usually like an oil type stuff, and it's not just soaking it in oil. There's a process that they do, and they get it to bind somehow. And so it protects the curcumin until it gets down into the intestines and is able to absorb and get taken into your body the way it's supposed to be taken in. And that's what's interesting. And so I ended up finding this particular one. This is kind of a newer one. It's a patented pending one. I believe it's patent pending. It's a proprietary process, I should at least say that, where they're able to get the curcumin out, and you can see they're actually tiny pills. Usually turmeric is these huge pills, and you have to take several of them multiple times a day for it to be effective. Currently, I'm taking more than the recommended dose. The recommended dose is 2. This would be a 30-day supply if you're taking 2 a day. I'm actually taking 6 a day. I take 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, 2 in the evening. Once again, I don't recommend that. This is what I'm doing. I'm actually talking to the manufacturers, seeing if I can take more than that, just because of this. And I want to show you this study here. So this is one of the article, not that. Sorry, let me find the right article here. Just one second, I'll be right back. Okay, because there are so many articles there were 800 and something, I had to make sure I found the right one. And so, I mean, there's a whole bunch of them that you can look at, but this one I really liked because it has some good graphs in it and I could understand it better. Also, I liked because it compared it to the chemo that I had just taken a couple of years ago. So I like that idea. So a couple things you should know about cancer and killing cancer is there are 2 main ways to kill it, and there's 2 main ways to slow it down. One way you can kill it is build up your immune system so good that your immune system goes after and kills it like it's supposed to do, because everybody's body has cancer cells in it. Usually your immune system just goes after it and just kills them. But sometimes your immune system gets a little bit behind because it's having to fight other battles. It's having to do different things. You got problems in your body. You got genetics. You got other things. Your environment, smoking, whatever is going on is affecting it. Maybe you're just bad on your body like I was, or I am. I'm still not that easy on my body, but what happens is your immune system just can't keep up and it ends up losing the battle. But if you build your immune system up strong enough, you might be able to get it to start attacking and killing it. The other way to kill it is just directly find a product that kills it, and that's called apoptosis. And when you have caused cell death, that's called apoptosis. The other thing, I'm not a doctor or anything. I've just done a lot of research over the last 3 years. But the other way you can slow cancer down is you can worry about angiogenesis. So angiogenesis is the development of blood vessels. Blood vessels go out into cancer cells. Cancer cells need blood vessels, and it'll create new blood vessels to grow the cancer. The other things that need cancer is or that need blood vessels is fat, and women who are menstruating need blood vessels as well. Other than that, the blood vessels, from what I understand, the blood vessels that you already have when you're born, they're just refurbished or built with cell by cell all the time. So you don't actually need to grow new blood vessels, except for all the other thing would be is if your body's trying to repair itself. So when I was on chemo, they actually gave me an anti-angiogenic drug that was supposed to help prevent cancer from growing as well. There's natural anti-angiogenic things out there, especially like things in strawberries and cherries and different things like that actually have a natural anti-angiogenic compounds or whatever, if you will. So the great thing about this is they're talking about liposomal curcumin. So that's the curcumin that's been encapsulated in this oil or something, so that it's more absorbable into your body. And they found that its effect on effects on cell growth, apoptosis, and angiogenesis in colorectal cancer. So they tested it on my cancer, colon cancer, and they tested it with and without oxaliplatin, which was the chemo medicine that I was on, oxaliplatin. And so I want to show you the full report here because it does have some really cool graphs here. It has some interesting things that I think you'll find interesting. The first one I'm going to skip because this one is the in vitro one, if I'm understanding correctly. That's this one right here. The next one is the one I want to show you, is this one right here. This one you can see it says that it was done in mice, or it says a mouse right there. This is Colo 205. That's a certain colon cancer specimen. Lovo is a different type of colon cancer. It's also colon cancer from what I understand. And that's the other specimen. I'm going to click on this to enlarge it. If I hover over it, this gray thing appears. Whoops, sorry. Let me try this again. Let's go back up here. Okay. Okay, if I move off of that, then that gray thing goes away. But what I want to show you is they tested it with saline. So over here is the cancer growth. So they measured it, millimeters. So this is the cancer growth. So what happens is they usually inject the cancer cells on each side of the abdomen of the mouse or rat, whatever they're testing it on. And then they can actually just look at it through the skin because it's just underneath the skin on the outside of the rib cage, on the outside of the abdomen. They just put it right out there. And they inject some cells there, and then they basically can let it grow. And this is the growth that it has taken, and this is how many days. It was only 22 days that they went. So look at the growth here. This top one here is the empty liposomes. So this is the liposomes, whatever they used to encapsulate. They just tested just to make sure that it wasn't being a factor. Obviously it wasn't. Saline actually tested better than the liposomes. I don't know if salty water was important for killing cancer, but they tested with saline as well. So those are basically your controls to make sure that it's not just that there's normal growth. But look at the other ones. This blue one is the chemo that I was on. That's the chemo. The yellow one is the liposomal curcumin. The green one is the liposomal curcumin with the chemo. So you can see the liposomal curcumin outperformed the chemo that I was on, which is incredible. Down here on same effect, same thing. You've got the saline and the liposomas having the same effect here. Neither one of those were very significant. The blue line is the oxaliplatin, the chemo, and then you got the green and the yellow is the liposomal curcumin. So that's what's incredible about curcumin. That's why I take so much of it. That's why I said I get this Mimi's and I take 6 of them a day. I'm actually seeing if I can take more than that. But that's really cool. And you saw that there was over 800 studies on curcumin, so that's why I'm real excited about it. Um, and so the main things that I take are the dandelion root. I take the hibiscus, and I take the chaga in a tea. I drink about 6 cups of that a day. I take this 3 times a day, 6 tablets. So 3 times a day. I take 2 tablets 3 times a day. I also take CBD uh, oil. And so the CBD oil I found, let me find the right one here. So this is the one that I found that I've been using that I think is effective. I can tell it's effective. Um, and it's from the CBD distillery. CBD oil is hemp oil. Actually, I'm sorry, it's not just hemp oil. Hemp oil is oil that's extracted from the seeds of hemp. Has very little CBD in it, cannabinoids. So CBD stands for cannabinoid or cannabinoids, I believe. And the CBD oil is not the same as hemp oil. Although your CBD oil, well, let me tell you the difference. The difference is the CBD oil doesn't just come from the seeds, it comes from the full spectrum of the plant. So it includes the leaves, the flowers, the stem, and the seeds as well. The reason you want to get from, well, this company, and I don't get anything from this company. I don't get anything from these guys either, besides they're clients of mine. But the reason I recommend them is because I know their quality. I know what my client expects, and so I can wholeheartedly recommend them, even though I don't really get any benefit from recommending them. Besides, he might do well and might hire me to do other stuff. But other than that, I don't get any direct benefit from that. But I recommend it just because I know the quality that my client expects and what he looks for, and so that's why I recommend that. See the CBD distillery, I don't get anything from them. I think they might have an affiliate program, but I anyway I don't get anything from recommending them. But I end up getting this one right here. Let me show you a few things, and the reason I recommend this particular one is because they do have this has a lot more oil in it. For one, it's a 1 full ounce. It is a full spectrum tincture, which means it has all of it. Has it for it has all the plant in it. It has let me look at these here. It says it has 83.3 milligrams per milliliter, but that's not a dose. A dose is actually about a third of a dropper, which ends up being about 43 milligrams. Oh, it's there it is. No, let's see. Yeah, it's 41.6 milligrams in a dose of cannabis oil, and or cannabidiol, something like that. And so I take a dose 3 times a day. Once again, that's just what I take. I take it in the morning, afternoon, and the evening, so I'm getting a little over 120 milligrams of the CBD oil. The reason I say I know it's effective, or I know it's there's active ingredient in there, it does have some coconut oil in there as well. It has a really horrible flavor. You get used to it though. Is if you put it under your tongue and you hold it there, and that's how you're supposed to take it. Put it under your tongue and you hold it there, and you keep it there for a little bit. You want to keep it there. I usually just sit and look at my computer while I'm taking it. and it's usually under there for about 5 minutes. But I can tell, because I can tell it's effective. It has active ingredients in it, because I start to get a little numb underneath my tongue, and that's really what it is it's an anti-inflammatory. But it also has some really great properties. Cannabinoid CBD does for I think, if I'm remembering correctly, it enables the other things to attack the cancer cells. It basically kind of weakens the cancer cells. It triggers them, and it also has the ability to attack them as well. But I think the main thing that it does is it helps weaken them and makes other things be able to attack them. So those are the main things that I'm taking currently. One other thing that I've started looking into and I've started doing, but probably not effective just yet, is mistletoe. I get mistletoe from Uriel Pharmacy. I did have to have a doctor's prescription. Um, my doctor is a DO, so he's not an MD, and he was able to write me a prescription for it. He was really good about learning about mistletoe, and I basically just I pretty much learned myself what I needed to do, and went to him and said, "This is what would you write this for me? And this is what I would like to do," and that's what he prescribes. Now, mistletoe, you can take it under your tongue. I'm taking it as an injection. I give it to myself in my stomach. I've only been able to do, I think, 4 of them, and then I started getting reaction, which is what's expected. You get a little red reaction on you, and if you go to helixer.com, which is the manufacturer's website, they've been Helixer, I believe, is in Germany, and they've been doing this. Well, mistletoe. Let's see, developed the first injectable mistletoe preparation in 1917. So Germany's actually been doing it for a long time, and they actually find that it's part of their normal oncology stuff. And you can see here it says for 100 years it has also been proven in integrative oncology. So they've been doing it for quite a while, and they've come down to a pretty good process of it. And the great thing about mistletoe is it does 3 things. It builds your immune system incredibly, and that's the main thing that it does, from what I understand. But it also has anti-angiogenic effects, and I can't remember what the third one is. Also, on its own, it just kills cancer cells. So not only does it build your immune system so it can do it, but it also it does apoptosis itself. But then it also has anti-angiogenic. So remember, there's 4 things you can do. 2 will kill it. 2 will slow it down. I didn't get into the last one, which I'll touch on here for a second. So just to recap, the first 2 that kill it are your immune system, and you can just find something that just simply goes and attacks cancer cells and kills them, which is apoptosis. And once again, I'm no scientist, I'm no doctor, I'm nothing like that. I can't be making any professional recommendations to anybody. All I can do is tell you what I'm doing, and so take this stuff from for what it's worth. I'm not a trained professional, so I'm just giving you my own opinion on what I've heard and what I believe I understand. So I may be mistaken on this. So those are the 2 main ways to kill cancer. The other 2 things is one is it actually doesn't kill it; it just slows it down, which is the anti-angiogenic drugs that will prevent it from growing new blood vessels. The other way is kind of controversial, and a lot of people, even doctors, misunderstand. And I've done more research on it. It's oxygen. People say cancer hates oxygen, but it's just the opposite. There's been some research studies found here, and if you look at it, I'm not going to dig and find it right now, but I read this study where they've determined that oxygen was an attractant to cancer cells, and that cancer would actively go out looking for it, and if cancer couldn't find it enough, then it would start spreading. But they found that if you gave it oxygen, it actually prevented it from going out and looking for it. So I sat down with a doctor who said, cancer hates oxygen. And I said, well, I've got colon cancer. Why did it go to my lungs? And he just smiled at me and went on with what he was saying. So I've later researched and found that no, cancer actually loves oxygen and it actually goes out seeking it. And that's why it's gone to my lungs, is it's getting it better, easier that way. So you can go and you can look into hyperbaric chambers. They'll help slow down the cancer, but all they do is slow it down. They don't cure it. They can suppress it enough to where you can get other things in and get those other things working, but they won't do it well enough. There's all kinds of things you can do out there that I understand. You can um, well, and another thing that I've done, and I should bring this up because this is really important, is I slightly do intermittent fasting, and I'm not completely faithful to it. I don't eat completely healthy. I try to eat healthy during the eating times, but I usually don't eat between 9 p.m. and 1 p.m. Meaning I skip breakfast and I have that 16-hour period where I don't eat. But I would be back when I was drinking the tea. I stopped drinking the tea for a while to let my kidneys recuperate. But back when I was drinking the tea, I would drink my tea first thing in the morning, no sugar, just the tea, and I didn't even put any Truvia or anything like that in it. And so I would let that get into my system. But what happens, from what I understand, and there's some good research here on fasting and cancer as well, and you can look it up here, is that when you fast, your cells protect themselves. But for some reason, cancer lacks that ability to do that, and they found that if they found the study was based on people who were going through chemo and fasting at the same time. They found that they were there were less of them were sick, and the chemo was more effective. They lost less hair. So there were some great added benefits to fasting, and so those are usually long periods of fasting, meaning more than 24 hours, more than just a 16-hour. So I have started to do a fast every Saturday to Monday morning, which ends up being about 33 hours. And then in that period, I would still take my curcumin, my CBD. I would drink tea if I was still in the process of drinking it, which I am going to add that again. So fasting, I think, is a very crucial thing to do as well. Also, because it does starve the cancer cells a little bit, because cancer needs glucose to survive, and so if you're starving it of it, then it prevents it from growing as well. So there's a lot to say. I really haven't done a whole lot of research on fasting, but I think there's something to that as well. So the main points are dandelion root, the hibiscus, the chaga mushroom, the CBD oil, the curcumin, mistletoe. I've started a little bit, don't really know, and mistletoe is supposed to. It's being used in Europe as not necessarily a cancer killer, but a way to slow cancer down and to have a longer remission period. And so I'm hoping that I can use these other things to really get on top of it, and then giving it the mistletoe will help just kind of slow it down even more. So the mistletoe, and then fasting, and I've probably forgot something else. But those are the main things that I do to keep the cancer at bay as best I can. I once again, I'm not a professional, I'm not a doctor. I'm just telling you what I do, what I found. Make sure that your research and everything that you do is good and done through reliable sources like this NIH.gov. There's so much garbage out there, really, and a lot of just bad rumors and stuff. And so, anytime if you're going to share something about cancer and treatments for it, make sure it has some good, substantial information that shows that it is effective. Because not everything that says it kills cancer, because There's things like they'll say, oh, well, this has a lot of antioxidants. That means it's great against cancer. And some people say, oh, well, that's great against cancer. And so they start spreading that rumor that whatever is great against cancer, but it's not. And so we need to be careful. But there are some great things out there that are effective. They're not effective for everyone. They're not effective for every cancer. So you really need to just do your research, pray about it. I'm a faithful person. I believe in God. I believe that if it's His will that He'll help us find the answer, that He will. And so pray about it, and I hope anybody who's suffering out there can find the right answers that they need. Take care.